What happens when a grumpy old man who apparently has been living under a rock for the past 2 years demands to ask questions at a Pierre Poilievre rally? Welcome to my channel, y'all. I hope you're having a great day. Before we get into this video, I would like to ask you a favor though, because YouTube seems to be suppressing my videos. They're unsubscribing some of my subscribers and the whole bit. So please check to make sure that you are still subscribed, and subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell notification so you never miss one of my videos. Also, please like this video and share it out to as many people as you can, just so YouTube can't suppress it. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into this. Pierre Poilievre attended a CARP meeting, which is the Canadian Association for Retired Persons, or something of that nature. I'm retired and I didn't even know this association existed, but apparently it does. And this was put on by Zoomers, oddly enough, because I don't know too many Zoomers who are retiring. My daughters are Zoomers, apparently, and they haven't really even started their careers yet. They're still just getting out of university. But hey, good for them for putting this on. Well, during this rally, of course, Pierre made a few really good announcements, and then he went to Q&A. And during the Q&A, this grumpy old man stood up and demanded that he be allowed to ask a question, even though he hadn't previously asked to be put on the questioners list. Well, he was allowed to ask his question, and we will get to that because it's actually kind of funny. But first, let's go to this rally and review the highlights in chronological order.
We as a government need to ensure that our seniors are rewarded for their hard work, their thrift, and their savings. And we have tangible plans to do it. First and foremost, let me say clearly and unequivocally, Conservatives will preserve the age of retirement for CPP, OAS, and GIS at age 65, period.
It's amazing to me that he even has to say that, but of course the NDP and the Liberals have been lying about his platform. They're saying that all of these programs are at risk, but they're not. They never have been. Yes, you could argue that a former Conservative government under Stephen Harper had planned on raising the age of retirement to 67, but they never did that. That was scheduled for 2023. The Conservatives weren't in power. That was nixed at the time. And it's not being brought forward again. This is not part of his program. So I think that the Liberals and the NDP should just stop lying.
We will also protect pensions. It was our party that put forward private members' legislation to ensure that in the case of large-scale corporate bankruptcies, that pensioners always get 100% paid out before the bondholders get their share of the bankrupted, liquidated assets.
Now, I haven't heard about this private members bill before, but it is a very good bill, and I hope that he finally passes it when he does form the government. So I do believe that this is a positive step forward to protecting the pensions of our senior citizens.
Furthermore, we recognize that our seniors have a lot of wisdom and ingenuity and mentorship to offer the next generation in our workforce. Some seniors make the decision to stay in the workforce. They enjoy working, they stay busy, it helps them contribute. They are under high demand because they know things that the next generation does not yet know. And I know when you turn 65, Moses, there'll be a lot of demands on you to stay in the workforce. It'll be a little while before that day comes, but nevertheless, it will indeed. So you'll be very happy with the next policy announcement I have, and it is this, that a Conservative government will honor and reward the hard work of seniors by keeping your first $34,000 of earnings completely tax-free.
We've heard this before at some of Pierre's previous rallies, but he does go into a little bit more detail here, explaining how some seniors who want to remain in the workforce are actually penalized by our tax system.
Right now, we have a system that punishes work. There's this incredible meme I love to go back to of a kid in a park next to his dad, and the kid is bawling his eyes out. And it's after he'd asked his father, what is an income tax form? And his dad said, well, it's like your school report card, except the opposite. The harder you work, the worse you do. And that is true for nobody more than seniors. Seniors who work get clawed back on their benefits, then they pay payroll tax and income tax. And in some income levels, they actually end up worse off by earning the next dollar. When you combine all the clawbacks and all the taxes, they're getting penalized, actually paying a fine to society for the crime of hard work. No good deed goes unpunished sometimes. But by allowing seniors to earn $34,000 tax-free, that's $10,000 more than the current limit, our seniors will be able to keep more of that dollar, and they will also be able to keep about an extra $1,500 in their pockets above and beyond what they earn right now. Furthermore, we will be cutting income tax by 15% on the lowest bracket, meaning your average retired person or worker will pay 15% less federal income tax. A couple with an average, with pensions or retirement income in the neighborhood of 50 grand, will save about $2,000, allowing them to pay their bills, perhaps enjoy a little better vacation, and keep the bills at bay. We will also, for those seniors who want to continue to grow their savings for a longer period of time, we will allow you to keep your RSPs for an extra 2 years, during which time you can compound and grow your savings.
All of these initiatives are really good news for everybody, not just seniors, because we'll all get there someday. We'll all be collecting a pension. But that's not the only thing he talked about during this rally. He actually talked about safety, and that's one of the areas that, as a former police officer, I'm particularly concerned about. So let's go to see what he said about safety.
Increasingly, our population feels endangered of crime. Do you hear about it in your community?
All the time.
Seniors afraid to go outside?
All the time.
Yeah. What are they afraid of?
They're afraid that we're allowing, when I toured with the police officers in York Region, that the police are getting laughed at because the criminals are being let out of jail.
I met a police officer with Anna. His name is Mario.
Right.
He told me he has some very clever criminals that he's been arresting for years. And he said they're very cunning and Machiavellian. But they've increasingly gotten stupid and easy to catch. And so he had one of them in the back of his car. And he said, you used to go to lengths to hide the drugs and the guns. You used to go to parks and bury your contraband. And we used to have to chase you around. Why is it so easy now? He said, because we don't care if we get caught anymore. There is no penalty. It's more hassle to try and avoid capture than it is simply to get caught and to re-offend again and again and again.
But that's not the only issue. Yes, there is catch and release and weak laws, and Pierre will talk about this in just a bit. But sometimes, even when people go to jail, sometimes it's better inside for them than it is outside. When I worked in Alberta, there were people who would commit crimes and wait for the police to arrive just so they could spend the winter in jail with regular meals, because it was better for them to do that. Jail shouldn't be a place where somebody wants to go, and it shouldn't be an extension of our welfare system like it so often is today.
The source of this problem is C-75.
That's exactly right.
The law, it's called catch and release. Here's what the law says. It requires judges to release offenders at the, quote, earliest opportunity and under the least onerous conditions. That is right in the law. You can have 100 prior convictions, and the judge has to release you at the earliest opportunity upon your latest arrest. In Vancouver, they had to arrest the same 40 offenders 6,000 times. That's 150 arrests per offender per year. I mean, you basically have to be doing crime all day, every day, to get caught every second day. I mean, these guys, they're hardworking. They're not unionized. They have no benefits. They do get accommodation. They go to the Hotel California, which means they check out, but they never really leave. And so they're back out on the street reoffending. So my plan will repeal C-75 and bring in mandatory jail, not bail. Jail, not bail, We will also repeal C5, the house arrest law. Any car theft, Anna, where you come from?
The car theft in my riding alone has gone through the roof. It's up 40%.
40%?
Yes.
Yeah, I was out in your area. I met a waitress, and she told me that she was able to cut one of her jobs. She was working one full-time job, 2 part-time jobs, exhausted all the time.
That's correct.
So she was able to scrimp and save, and then she woke up one morning, walked out her front door, and her car was gone,
Yeah.
which the insurance wouldn't cover.
That's right.
So she had to go back to taking another job so that she could buy herself a car that she needs to get to work. This insanity has to stop. You know, house arrest for car theft, so you can sit around watching Netflix in your living room or playing Grand Theft Auto. This is the insanity that has led to, you wonder, Moses, why we have so much craziness in our streets. This is the reason, because there are no consequences. I will repeal C5. There will be no more house arrest for repeat offenders. We will repeal C83, the law that allows Paul Bernardo out of a maximum security penitentiary into a medium security penitentiary. In fact, then we will also take action against multiple murderers. Right now, because of a terrible ruling by the Supreme Court, multiple murderers are able to serve only one 25-year life sentence, even if they've murdered 5 or 6 people. There's one offender in Quebec City who killed 6 people, and he's eligible to apply for parole when he's in his 50s. He will serve as little as 4 years per murder. So one human life, according to our justice system, is worth only 4 years.
Well, it's actually gone up a year, because back when I was in Alberta, a lot of people would commit murders, or a lot of murderers would commit murders, and they would get pled down to manslaughter, even when it was clear that it was first degree, even when it was clear it was a hate crime. They would plead down to manslaughter, and they would get 12 years and be out in 3. And even if they committed multiple manslaughters, which were really murders, they would serve their sentences concurrently. So they would get out in 3 years. I arrested one guy. He killed 3 people. It was all pled down to manslaughter, and he was out in 3 years because he served all those sentences concurrently. So at the same time, he served all 3 manslaughter sentences. Ideally, he should have been in jail for 36 years on 3 manslaughters. But no, he was out in 3 years. That was the price of a human life in Alberta when I was working there.
This is crazy. I will use the notwithstanding clause to overturn this ruling and keep mass murderers in prison until they come out in a box. We'll pass a 3 strikes you're out law. 3 repeat serious violent offenses will mean that someone will become a dangerous offender, ineligible for bail, parole, probation, or house arrest. They will serve a minimum of 10 years, after which their release will be dependent on perfect behavior, clean drug tests, and learning an employable skill. In other words, if those boxes are not checked, the offender will never get out of jail. We want people to be fully rehabilitated so there is no risk to the public before they are released on our streets. It is just one of the ways that we will take action to stop the crime for a change. So we will also secure our borders with high-powered scanners, watchtowers, 2,000 more CBSA officers on the front line, and we will pay for that by canceling the ridiculous gun grab that goes after licensed, law-abiding, trained and tested sport shooters and hunters, the people who are least likely to commit a crime. We know this because criminals don't go and get a license to buy a firearm. That is the purview of our uncles and our grandfathers who enjoy hunting. Grandpa Joe's hunting rifle is not the problem.
And of course, you've heard me say this before on this channel. The only reason why the Liberals are bringing this out is because it's election season. They bring it out all the time. I'm not sure what they'll do next election if they happen to get elected this time, because what will they have to do? Will they go after all of the guns? Certainly, they'll probably go after the handguns. They've already made it illegal to sell or purchase a handgun in Canada, so they're probably going to come after those next. So all of these sports like IPSC and cowboy action, and even the Olympic sports that nobody watches, the Olympic shooting, well, those are in danger of being eliminated because, hey, they're going to eliminate all guns in Canada. It's not just going to stop here. They say it is. It's not going to. And it's doing nothing for safety because the guns that are being used are not in the hands of law-abiding citizens. But you've heard me rant on this before, so let's get back to this rally.
We will also ensure that we will put an end to these raging anti-Semitic riots in our streets. This is going to end, Prime Minister. We're going to bring in tougher laws that give massive crippling fines to anyone who's engaged in political vandalism. The fines will be 10 times the value of the damage done. There will be mandatory jail time for anyone who does hate-based vandalism. We will cut the bureaucracy so that our places of worship can get assistance in funding protection against terrorist attacks, so that never again does a synagogue or any other place of worship need to feel afraid that they will be firebombed or shot upon or in any other way attacked. And as for those people who've come to this country on visitor visas and who are then using the privilege of being here as a visitor to go on our streets and terrorize our Jewish community, anyone caught doing that and breaking our laws will be automatically deported from our country. So.
Now, I personally would like to see him go even further than that. I think that if you're here on any visa, not just a visitor's visa, but any visa, I think that if you're here as a permanent resident, I think that if you're here as a naturalized citizen, if you came from someplace else and you committed a crime, you lose your citizenship and you get shipped back to that country. No, being a Canadian is a privilege, and you can lose that. In my opinion, you can lose that. You know, if you weren't born here, or if you have a citizenship in another country, let's say you're born here, but you're like Mark Carney and you hold 2 other passports. Well, you know what? You're guilty of a crime. Ship them back to one of those other countries. That's where I would go with this. I would go even further than Pierre Poilievre would go. But hey, his ideas, they're a good start.
We're going to start the Q&A portion of this event. The first question comes from Libby Znaimer from Zoomer Media. Libby, go ahead.
Mr. Poilievre, the most interesting polling question that I've seen frames the motivation as hope versus fear. And the numbers showed that most of the people voting out of hope were voting Conservative, while those who are fearful are voting Liberal. So what's your message to the people who are afraid of what will happen in our future?
I didn't know that that was one of the polling questions, but that's a great polling question. And to find out that Conservatives are voting for hope because they have hope in the future with Pierre Poilievre, but Liberals are voting out of fear, that's actually kind of scary. Whenever you do something out of fear, you hardly ever get anywhere. Yeah, that does explain quite a bit. Let's go back and see what his answer to that question is.
Thank you. That's an important question. First of all, I want to say that I feel grateful that my campaign is giving hope to so many people. In fact, that's the number one comment that I get when I hold my rallies and I go down that, we call it the tunnel of love as we're going in. They say that my plan, my purpose is giving people hope that they can take back control of their lives and live in the country that their parents enjoyed. I think we need to build out on hope. And I think first question I would ask is, what kind of government do you want? Is it one that's driven by hope, or is it one that's driven by fear? I think it's clear that hope is the only way we'll have a brighter future for our families and our people. But I understand that there's a lot going on in the world today, whether it's the unacceptable rhetoric, threats and tariffs of President Trump, or anything else that has legitimately destabilized people. My message to them is that Canada is going to overcome those things. We're going to be a strong, sovereign nation that stands on its own 2 feet, protects its territory and its future for itself. And that the problems we have in Canada, there are people are living with in their daily lives, They existed long before the president was reelected. And if we don't fix them, they will be even worse after he's gone. If it was a bad idea to block our energy industry before President Trump's threats, well, it's a god-awful idea now. And the best thing to do is to unlock our energy and take back economic sovereignty. If it was a bad idea to tax our homes, block builders from providing our youth with a place to live before these tariff threats, well, it's a terrible idea now. It was a bad idea to double our national debt and grow our bureaucracy by 50% before these tariff threats, well, it's an absolutely reckless idea now. All of the things that the Liberals did wrong over the last 10 years are even more dangerous now that our trade is under threat. The solutions are the same as they were before: to unlock free enterprise, lower the taxes to reward work, investment, home building, and energy, unlock our entrepreneurial spirit, cap the cost of government, fix the broken immigration system. All of those things are necessary. In fact, they were necessary before, but they're more necessary than ever. And that's why I'm asking people to vote for hope for a change. Thank you.
Well, I think that's a great answer, and I hope that he convinces some of these Liberals who are voting out of fear to actually vote for hope. But now let's jump ahead to a segment that I like to call Clued Out Grumpy Old Man. I'm not going to go and show you any of the part where this clued out grumpy old man actually interrupted the rally here, and I'm not going to, when he was demanding to be able to ask a question. I'm going to go to the second part where he was actually allowed to ask his question, and then we'll talk about it.
Can I ask my question? I'm done. Then we'll get done.
Marissa, whoever you want to answer the question, I'm happy to take questions from anyone.
Disruptive. We're giving you an opportunity to ask a question now.
Right here.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, that's all right.
Mr. Poilievre,
Yes, sir.
you said something very...
Sir, can you speak here? I'm going to just...
Here, take the microphone so I can hear the gentleman.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Poilievre, you said something very interesting and to me.
Yes.
You twice mentioned anti-Semitic riots. Now, I do remember that in the 30s there was a very large anti-Semitic riot led by Nazis during the growth of the Nazis, and it was in downtown Toronto. I don't see, or I haven't seen, maybe I missed it, where and when the anti-Semitic riots of recent time have happened. Do you remember the places or the dates or times when these anti-Semitic riots that you mentioned took place?
Yes, happy to. Downtown Vancouver, they had a miniature riot right outside a coffee shop where I was speaking, targeting me because I've been a defender of the Jewish people. They've happened in downtown Toronto. In Montreal in late fall, there was an absolute monstrous mob going around smashing windows, lighting fires, and doing Hail Hitler symbols. We've had Jewish daycares attacked. We've had Jewish schools that have bullets fly through their windows in the middle of the night. We've had synagogues firebombed. Well, I just gave you a bunch of examples, sir. And
why are none of those covered in the newspapers?
no, I don't control the newspapers. I don't control the newspapers, sir, and I don't intend to. I don't want to live in a country where politicians control the newspapers. I believe in freedom of speech. But my mission is to, when I become Prime Minister, to ensure that there are no anti-Semitic riots for the newspapers to write about. Let's make this a safe country again.
Where has this guy been for the last year and a half? Even somebody who watches only CBC News should have caught on to this, but somehow this guy missed it. I find it incredible that anybody in Canada could have missed this stuff, but apparently there are some people. Now, then he goes and asks Pierre Poilievre why this isn't being reported in the newspapers. Well, it is being reported in the newspapers. He just probably hasn't been spoon-fed the right news from the right newspaper, I guess. And really, Pierre doesn't have any control over what the newspapers report. So I don't know. To me, this guy sounds as if he's a liberal CBC watcher, but that's just what he sounds like to me. But I don't want to end this on a negative note. So instead, let's go to something that Pierre and Anna did in the Lower Mainland of British Columbia a few days ago, and then we'll talk about it.
Hey everyone, Pierre Poilievre here, answering questions for Six Buzz.
And I am Anna Poilievre here, Pierre's wife, here to ask the questions. What would you do on your first day in office as a prime minister?
Well, we are going to axe the federal sales tax on new homes. And we will also incentivize municipalities to cut their building taxes so we can knock $100,000 of taxes off every new home. We're going to cut income tax by 15%. That will be phased in over the first few years in my time in office. And that'll let you keep more of your paycheck. And all those things are going to begin the first day I take office. My musical tastes are pretty eclectic. When I thumb through my list, it's like anything as random as Led Zeppelin to Louis Armstrong. I do play some faster music when I'm working out occasionally.
And then you have
even obviously some country music because I grew up in Calgary.
Yeah.
So there's always some of that on my playlist.
And he has no choice but to listen to Latin music, obviously, even though you make up some lyrics.
What lyrics do I make up?
Well, you say, we go to Home Depot, yo quiero estar contigo, vivir contigo. And
We go to Home Depot. We go to Home.
Yeah.
That's what I thought the song was about. Guys who needed to get some building supplies, and they needed a 2x4 and some
It's not.
hammers.
It's Enrique Iglesias, and it's really good. Let's move on.
Thought it was about going shopping at Home Depot.
Okay, what are we going to do about all the crime?
Sometimes the answers are simple. Not easy, but simple. We have to lock up criminals, right? So if you have, right now we're in the Vancouver area. Get this stat. 40 criminals got arrested 6,000 times in Vancouver. So we're basically going to lock them up with tougher laws. 3 strikes, you're out, by the way. 3 serious offenses, you go to jail for a minimum of 10 years, no chance for parole, bail, probation, or house arrest, none whatsoever. And even after your 10-year sentence is done, you'll have to earn your way out of prison through spotless behavior, clean drug tests, and learning an employable skill.
Are you watching anything on TV right now?
No, I don't watch TV.
We don't really have time, guys. Sorry, we're boring.
I watch a little bit of UFC on my YouTube.
You do. You like that. So tell me, why do you want to become prime minister?
It's pretty simple. I basically want to give people what I had. Very simple deal. You work hard, you get a great life. And that used to be how the country worked. You could get a decent job out of school. You could get a down payment by the time you were 26, 27. That's what I had that chance when I was a kid. I started from pretty humble beginnings and got to where I am. I just want everybody else to have that chance. So that's why I'm doing it.
Sounds like common sense to me. How can people who want to support you help?
Vote. You have to vote and tell all your friends to vote, as long as they're voting, of course. For change, with the Conservatives, you want your life back, you want to afford a home, you want a great life, you want the freedom to do whatever you want, then you got to get out and vote. Because if you don't vote, it will not change. Things will only get worse. They can get better. We have to have hope for a change. Go mark your X.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, so there you have it. Mark your vote for change. And obviously, I'm going to be voting for Pierre Poilievre. So I hope you do too, because he's the only real option that we have for Canada to save Canada. Because really, if we get 4 more years of the Liberals, I don't think Canada will survive. I don't think that Alberta will stay in. And I just think the whole Confederation will fall apart. But I've said that on other videos as well. But that's just my opinion. I'd love to know what you think. Put your comments down below, and while you're at it, please like this video, share with your friends and on social media. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and hit that bell notification so you never miss another video. Also, please join me on Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Pacific time for my live stream, where you're invited to join in on the conversation. And that's on both YouTube and Rumble. And of course, that's Pacific time, if I didn't mention that already. probably did. Finally, if you want to get your Canadian firearms license, I teach the required courses. So if you reside on Vancouver Island and you want to take a course from me, there are links in the show notes of this video to my website where you can sign up for one. And I am trying to get students interested in taking a course in May. So if you're around in May and you're thinking about it, hey, look it up in the description of this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.